Hello and welcome, Paladins fans, to day number 2 of the Paladins Pro Circuit Summer Finals. I'm Ryan Agro-Bailey. I'll be your desk host for the majority of the day today, as this one is the biggest day of Paladins yet so far this season. We're going to go down from 6 to 3 teams by the end of the day, with tomorrow only having the losers finals and the grand finals with us in tow. So it's going to be a great day. So we want to see how you're going to be watching it at home. I'm assuming you've got a great setup. Again, here's a little bit of a hint. If you tweet at Paladins Pro and use the hashtag PPC, and this is critical, include your pet. We'd prefer a name as well, so I know what to tell if they're a good boy or a great girl, like Quacky Bubbles R did today, ready for round 2 with our perfect dog right up front. That's what we love to see, and we're going to see those all day long. So again, tweet at Paladins Pro, use the hashtag PPC, and show us how you are going to be watching day 2 of the summer finals. Going to bring in Kresnik now, our master analyst, as we're going to get ready for a pretty big setup here, Kresnik. It's Carnage Gaming up against District 69.
Yeah, and it's our first elimination matchup here too, these two teams being in the losers bracket. And our first look at Europe versus Brazil. So Europe having only played itself and D69 having a chance to play against Sanguine earlier. Definitely going to be excited to see how these two regions match up, with EU really forcing this triple DPS for the longest time, and Brazil kind of sticking to 2 tanks for almost the majority of the season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty interesting because these two teams in particular were sent to the lower bracket by North American teams. Team Project handled Carnage pretty easily early on yesterday, and then District 69 looked like they were going to get swept up against the number 1 North American seed in Sanguine, and then managed to claw back only to eventually lose it in the set-deciding game number 5. District 69 did stand out to me a little bit, though, Kresnik, just because they seem to be picking slightly differently than a lot of other teams that we saw yesterday.
They've always been willing since the start of this split to be doing whatever. They're going to experiment. They're not going to be afraid to get rid of roles that maybe they think they need otherwise. They were running triple support, no tank way earlier in the season, just yesterday. Quad DPS with 3 flankers and winning against Sanguine, this almost juggernaut here. So that flexibility, it should be good for them into any team if they're willing to pull out whatever they think will counteract what Carnage or anyone that they're up against wants to do.
Yeah, we didn't see a whole lot of Carnage because, frankly, Team Project made sure of that. Project dispatched them in 3 pretty quick games, but clearly this team has more in the tank than what we saw yesterday. How do you think they turn around their poor performance on day 1 of the tournament?
I think they need to, again, play off of Espexian errors. The same thing I said yesterday, but I think Project did a good job at shutting them down when they could with the off-tank play from G-Bunny. So knowing that they're going to be playing against a team that really likes that single tank, abuse that a little bit more. Play those off lanes, play off of getting your DPS around to the back, and have that DPS matchup that is more even between Carnage and D69 than D69 might be used to from other teams.
Yeah, I think that that's going to be a good look for them because they clearly struggled against G-Bunny on a lot of Ashe yesterday and Hero on the Inara. So maybe a little bit of a tank-lighter team in District 69 might help them out. But with the way that D69 played for the majority of yesterday, that might really not end up being the case because even though they're down here on the loser side, I do think District 69 looked very strong. They went through Celestial Esports, who looked to be pretty good as well. And then, as we mentioned, taking Sanguine all the way to the edge.
Yeah, definitely a comeback from D69 compared to the end of the last split, with them getting, I think, dominated pretty hard, if I remember right, by Celestial in that final game. And even against Sanguine, when they banned Io, it looked great. I think that they won with kind of different comps against Sanguine, and then as soon as Io gets through, they get 12-0'd. 12-0 against them when Io's on the table, and victories every game when she's not. So hopefully either they've learned a better way to play against her, or they're just going to take her off the board against Carnage. Because I think if they manage to get rid of Io or they find the answer, they could come back easily from this losers bracket.
And Io has been a pretty heavy topic of discussion so far because she has been pretty dominant in the few times that she's been let through. But Gera on not Io has looked fantastic. He had a triple snipe on Genos yesterday, and a double snipe for that matter. And then he pulled out the Corvus consistently. District 69 looked to be one of the only teams that was willing to prioritize that Corvus really heavily. Do you think that Corvus being a real player now in these picks and bans might throw Carnage for a bit of a loop?
I think so, 100%, especially since, to me, Gera and Baller Steve, I think Gera more so was the biggest star on Corvus, the one who I think understood the character the most in terms of throwing his projection out a little bit early so people don't necessarily know where he's going, marking the targets that he's going to heal, these little things that just increase the gameplay and help his team survive, and pocketing players like Logi, who you can see can absolutely carry if given characters like Kinessa. Having this Corvus with that lifesteal potential for pocketing your DPS and sometimes your tanks in dire situations, I think having that skill is going to be awesome for them against Carnage, a team that we didn't see a lot of Corvus, if any, from yesterday.
Yeah, I believe we saw it once, but it was not a particularly inspired performance. So, but again, in fairness to that Corvus pick, a whole lot wasn't working for Carnage Gaming yesterday. And again, to be fair, no one looked ready to take down Team Project and how well they played in day one of this tournament. So I think that having a fresh slate here for Carnage Gaming is going to be a good look for them as we take a look at the maps. Frog Isle is going to be our first map, and District 69 is taking off Fish Market and Bazaar, whereas Carnage Gaming getting rid of Splitstone Quarry, a map that we've seen be pretty contested so far, and Brightmarsh.
Yeah, I find it kind of interesting that District 69 wants to go to Frog if this is their pick after banning 2 maps that I'd consider sniper heavy. They have Logi on their team. We know he can play those snipers. You think they'd want to play a little more to their strengths, especially since those maps also enable triple DPS. And Frog Isle, to me, has always been the quintessential 2-tank map, one in the main lane, one in the side, and you protect your backlines who can play in these wide open angles. And District 69, they're targeting tanks already with Inara being banned. Get rid of that sustained potential in mid and have a tank that can't really live as long against these Kinessas, these Victors, and anyone who wants to play in the window.
And Carnage Gaming, same sort of idea, take away one of those tanks, this time in the Terminus. I like the idea of the Inara ban, though, Kresnik. I mean, Inara looked so strong yesterday, and it wasn't just for 1 or 2 teams. Basically, every team that got her felt like she was pretty impactful.
I definitely argument for the best tank in the game, but she does require a strong support behind her that knows when to be healing off of that Earthing Guard, bonus Rejuvenate, get that from 0 to full. If you're low, if you manage to hide off your wall for a couple seconds, the team can't push you. If you have good skill in both those roles, it's going to be great, and at this level, you have that. The Inara is always going to be a good pick, so smart for them to get rid of it for sure. And Carnage Gaming, maybe a small misstep. When you're on second pick, you can't ban that sniper without banning the other. You can give them a massive advantage, and unless they have an answer to this with crazy aggression, I don't know what they're going to be able to do against it, and I don't think Sky is the answer if that's going to be their first rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense to get rid of the Strix if you're going to get rid of one of the two so that the Flare doesn't do quite as much work, but the top pick Sky, certainly a bit of a curveball. But hey, I mean, Carnage struggled yesterday. May as well try and pull something different out, and different indeed. 2 picks we haven't seen all of the summer finals up until this point. Both Sky and Saris locked in top 2 here for Carnage.
I will say, and I don't think they should have picked it this early, but I think there is merit to Saris on this map. You can heal very easily. Just peek for 1 second, back away. You don't need line of sight after you get the initial lock on the heal. So you can actually pocket someone on the point pretty effectively. Sky, definitely a little harder to justify. I'm not going to lie. I've seen SSG in the past with Ares coming from there onto Carnage play with it on this map and do well. But into this Kinessa, into an Eevee specifically, she's just going to bully her out, blink over as soon as the Sky tries to react. The Eevee's away, and Sky's burnt a couple cooldowns to try to hit her at all.
Could be difficult, but maybe the space that Rom can create, he usually does get a lot of area locked down for his team. Could be what Carnage Gaming need. And now potentially another pick that we didn't see all of Friday in the Fernando, and it is locked in for Carnage. So 4 picks for them so far. 3 of them have yet to be seen.
And I do find the Rom Nando interesting. That yells aggression to me. They're going to be running down both lanes, spending the Immortal to keep themselves alive in the backline to pressure this Kinessa. Is this their answer? I mean, the long distance heal, lock onto a tank that's running in, keep that heal going around the corner so the Kinessa can't really respond right away, but with an Eevee holding down that danger side, this Rom or Nando, whoever's there, is going to be getting harassed a lot. And if there's a Moji in the way too, that's a lot of damage that a tank really can't answer. Moji's fantastic at burning through those big health bars.
And another damage dealer here for D69, so no true frontliner for the European squad. Instead, they're just going to try and race Carnage Gaming with their double front line. But as you highlighted, those frontliners are a little bit more dive-oriented, so they'll pick up one that is not, one a little bit more designed for the point. In the Barrack, two vastly different drafts here, Kresnik. Which one do you think will succeed?
I want to lean towards the DPSs purely because of this last pick Barrack. I think if they went with any other main tank here, even Atlas, someone who can play on his shield and his resets, it could help a lot. But picking Barrack into Talus and Kinessa, he is literally a head on. He's like a Goomba. He's a head with feet. He's so easy to headshot, and Talus and Kinessa can do that so easily, so much burst damage. That's a rough last pick for Carnage.
Man, this is going to be a fun game to watch. We didn't see crazy drafts like this a whole lot yesterday, but what a way to kick off day number 2, huh? Why not? District 69 up against Carnage Gaming. Let's get into it.
And what a day number 2 it is. Thank you, Aggro and Kresnik, for trying to break down these interesting compositions as we move on to Frog Island. These are the elimination games now, Dolson. These two teams both losing to the North American powerhouses yesterday, so there will be no second chances here. D69 and Carnage, with these unusual drafts, are going into battle.
And it's got to be D69 that you look at coming in with the hot hand. Despite a loss yesterday, they go all 5 games against Sanguine, the best team out of North America. Maybe the best team in this tournament remains to be seen. But at least one of the top 4 teams. We know that. They're in the upper bracket finals. In Carnage, I like kind of how Aggro put it. It's the opportunity to wipe that slate clean. This is the kind of upside of these 2-and-done tournaments, I suppose. And they've drafted something interesting for themselves. Time to see if it works out.
Well, as you would expect, there is already tons of action. First kill found by Exentra. Gervin responds, though, by taking care of Cruncy, who it looks like is going to be trying to take the air-quote tank responsibilities on this Moji. We'll see how it goes, as Logi will be a problem in the backline on this Kinessa. But now with Gervin and Scuderi and Crimson all falling, suddenly the space entirely opened up for D69. They had to give up some percent to make it happen, but now they're in mid-control.
We're starting to see this onslaught of damage just overwhelm Carnage. The Fernando hasn't been able to stand tall. Genos finding massive value with these Void Grips, holding these high-priority targets in place. And now you get Cruncy just running down the backline. I'm not sure Carnage are even going to be able to fight back in.
Had a little bit of help from Fish Echo there in the back line. Did seem like maybe a little bit too much of just the Moji. He's doing all the work they need, 96% in climbing. That is the point captured for D69. They've already gotten 2 picks. The true power to the back line from Exentra as he keeps up the pressure. That should allow for D69 to come around this next corner pretty easily. They came out of the gates hot.
And Kresnik kind of framed it perfectly. I mean, this is a Carnage draft outside of the Barrack that wants to run at you and dive on you, but you're running into an Ice Storm, you're running into a headhunting Kinessa, you're running into a massive amount of damage, all bolstered up by a Luminary Mark Genos. D69 are simply outgassing. They've gone to the gas pump and chosen the second or third option. They paid a little extra money, and the octane's a little bit higher in their 5.
It absolutely is. D69 continuing to keep them pinned in their base. Carnage running out of options to try and get their feet underneath them. Even with all these frontliners, no one is able to withstand all this damage at this point. Cruncy is moved all the way to the backline, but the payload is still rumbling. No one even touching it. They finally are able to move back out, get the Barrack placed back down. They have the Fernando here as well, but Gervin has already fallen. There should finally be a little bit of room for Carnage to find some breathing, but Cruncy is stationary, melting targets, finds the snack time as well for a double. That is it. D69 get the 2 wins, and Carnage, they got to find some way to slow this down.
You probably hear me chuckling because there's the biggest grin on my face, and I'm sorry if you're a Carnage fan, but this is just, it's an onslaught, and nothing short of it for D69. Cruncy has died twice, and when you frame it in the perspective of a Moji that's been sitting in the back line the entire time, it seems to make a little bit more sense. All 4 damage-dealing members of D69 on top of those damage charts, and that's the opportunity that Genos buys you. I mean, he spreads out the marks, and you can see with Light Years and Retrograde, I mean, that's pretty much the standard Genos card build. He's going to be able to get it on 3-4 members if he rotates those properly. You can see right now, leaving base, all 4 members have extra damage on top, so you're going to be winning these fights off the bat, and they're winning them quickly enough that Carnage Gaming doesn't stand a chance.
and over relatively quickly so far, and it looks like this next one is starting the same way. Does 69 have this center control? Gervin will be the one that comes in right away with the dome shield, but he melts. It seems to do nothing to dissuade the rest of D69, and everyone else on Carnage kind of waiting in the wings to find their time in, but how can they move in? Logi was holding down this angle, so they send the ROM, trying to force him off the position, but Excentra's gotten the double elsewhere, took down Skidary, and one more. Ares does at least get this return kill into Gera, but now that Aspexy's dropped down, who is going to contest the actual point? It's overtime ticking, it's the point captured, and D69 are just about to sweep Frog Isle.
This is about to be a 7-minute game. I mean, if this takes the full 2 minutes to roll itself in there, and I'm not sure it really even will. I mean, it's just a bit disjointed from Carnage. And I mean, again, there's an onslaught of damage that you have to fight through, but you look at a ROM deep in the back line, suddenly there's a Barrack alone on the point, and they're just not winning any of the individual 1v1s, and you can't blame them. You have a Genos Mark on quad DPS. I mean, it's just, you don't really stand a chance. You kind of have to hope that you can fight together and withstand it. At this point, you just have to hope you can get out of base, but, I mean, with what you got waiting on the other end, I'm not so sure it's going to happen.
Now, as you mentioned, there is no one-on-one match that they can win. They haven't been able to win the 2-on-2s. Ultimate right outside the base from Gera does put in some decent damage and keep Carnage further locked down. This will have to be their final stand as the payload now starts to rumble in. The Moji atop it just is melting everyone, though. Crimson, especially Skidary, they're all done. D69, put them out of their misery. They take Frog Isle easy.
I'm laughing at the final moment there. It's Crunchy on the payload on Emoji. Essentially, because normally what you'll see is like a Barrack drops his turrets on the payload as it rolls forward, and, you know, they'll shoot out some damage while it goes. I mean, that's like a moving flamethrower, essentially, with Crunchy just getting a free ride into the enemy base. I mean, I hesitate to say that one was over in picks and bans. I mean, it really seemed like the Barrack pick around the end. I agree with what Kresnik said. It was just too easy to punish. At the end of the day, you're winning the fights as quickly as you are. Quad DPS is not going to lose.
No, they ran over them in that one. It felt almost like no contest. So I'm going to do what I hope Carnage is trying to do, and maybe just forget Frog Isle at this point. I'll get it back over to the desk and let them break it down from here.
I barely had time to finish my breakfast bar before that game was over. An absolutely crushing defeat there for Carnage Gaming, and District 69 coast to a Game 1 win. Kresnik, I think it's safe to say that the quad DPS was strong enough right there for District 69. Who needs a tank when everyone's dead? You don't have to tank any damage if they don't have any damage.
Yeah, and with the Genos boost too, just overwhelming what they were able to bring to the table. And they really didn't have a lot on the other side. You shoot at that Sky, she's not really able to respond to you if she fights the Moji. You just have the barrier, you have Ice Block. You have so many responses to getting bursted by this Sky that she focuses one person up, couldn't get that kill. The other 3 DPS killed me. They just had the answer to this triple tank. A second DPS or anything else to help them actually win trades on Carnage would have turned that game around. But again, that Barrack last pick, it was just someone to sit there and give District 69 more ult charge.
Yeah, it was really rough there. I wrote down the streaks at the end of round number 1. Carnage Gaming only got 2 kills in the first cap and convert, and the streaks for D69 were 9, 7, 12, 10, and 11 that they were on, and that was just the first point. The second point didn't get a whole lot better. Crunchy really did do whatever he wanted on this Moji, and that was not different for anybody else. Gera, the only one to die in the second round of pushing. Otherwise, a nearly flawless game for District 69.
And I do love the use of the Snow Globe by Fasheko. We always talk about how Wormhole is like the only EV talent. You run Wormhole, you're not going to get much done, but this is a perfect map to pull out the Snow Globe. You don't need that safety. They really didn't have the damage to deal with you, and having the double ultimate really lets Fish punish Gervin on this Barrack, or even a Spexy. And all these tanks really need their movement options to make anything work. When you can go in, ult them, get away, go back in and re-ult them when they think they're safe, that's more than enough time for 4 DPSs with 15% more damage on top of that to kill anything.
I think that's pretty safe to say. We certainly saw it play out that way. A couple of the picks that we were excited to see for Carnage Gaming there. The Saris doesn't really have a chance to really work. The Fernando was really rough, only 8k damage there for that selection. So maybe we'll be seeing some of the more traditional picks that we saw a little bit more yesterday after that game, as we're going to be heading to Ice Mines, a map that has ended up mostly, if memory serves, I think it's been full converted each time we've seen it so far this weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's just teams figuring out the map a little bit more. When you have a draft that can really roll this map, people used to kind of draft a little bit safer, more for the mid fight, and then saying, all right, well, we'll win every mid, and it doesn't matter if we don't push. But teams are now more willing to spend those ultimates because they understand the fight a little better. No one wanted to play this map for the longest time before some changes happened to it. Some of the gates opened, made it a little easier to rotate around on once you captured the midpoint, and now teams are getting very comfortable on it. Carnage, I think, also banning a comfortable DPS here. Victor, someone that easy to put anybody on, but specifically on this map, great damage at medium range, hard to kill, and a really impactful ultimate. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, we've seen Victors dominate pretty consistently, so that's a smart ban, I think, from Carnage. And District 69 take away the champion that we often see first picked on this map in Terminus. And Carnage Gaming going to stick with their same idea. Victor and Vivian both taken off the board, so the easiest DPS that you can select now taken away from both sides. IO ban from District 69, and now that does leave Corvus open, and we know that both teams have played this in the past.
Yeah, and I actually like him on this map. I think just that pocket potential, you can play pretty safely, and marking people through walls definitely helps you keep your team alive when you have a target to heal in front of you. But Carnage, they disregard that for now. They pick up the Bomb King, which it's fantastic here. AoE control around corners, great CC, a very impactful ultimate, and ultimates. Any character with a strong ultimate is going to be very powerful on this map when you expect it to go through a bunch of different mid-fights in a row. Ultimates and strong tanks will always be the name of the game here, and District 69 pick up the other side of that.
Yeah, the Inara that was banned away in game number 1, and District 69 has shown a propensity to pick the Corvus right here, but Gera goes to his old faithful, Genos, instead. And with the results that Gera has had on this pick, even in the games where District 69 lose, I feel like you can never hold it against Gera's Genos. It's been phenomenal.
Oh yeah, for sure. And another impactful ultimate that you can even combo with Seismic Crash. Inara throws the stun out, calls where it's going to go, follow up with the Genos ultimate. You can't miss at that point, as long as you have the angle correct. And Carnage, keeping things interesting. We seem to have a lot of Blast Shields is going to be the name of the game for District 69 right now, because we have 3 Blaster champs, Eevee, Dredge, and Bomb King, all being picked up so far. Love Dredge on this map. His ability to control a zone is fantastic. And Eevee, someone I thought would struggle more, but as I saw her get picked on this map, there's enough corners where you can put your wormhole in a safe position, you can go deep with it, and being able to poke and get out on a map where normally commitment means death is something that I can't undervalue.
I mean, this is a lot of damage, again, for Carnage, but we'll see if they can actually withstand the damage coming from District 69 in the form of this Kinessa, most likely for La G, who's looked phenomenal on that pick so far. Does District 69 grab another strong point tank? Is this really just to try and keep it away from Carnage and keep them keep a good point tank out of their hands?
I think so. There's still Khan available and Atlas for the main tank role, but I do think they want to get rid of the easier to play main tanks. They put them some tougher ones, but Nando is an option for sure. A champ that can get aggressive, can play that main tank role if you run enough self-sustain, whether it be formidable, whether it be a high level of brand to get all that bonus healing on top of that. And Pip being a main healer, a character that I think is underexplored right now, difficult to play, but with Mega Potion or Combat Medic, you can output a lot of healing. That does still push forward that you really need to buy Blast Shields if you're District 69, because there is not a single source of haven on either of these teams other than the 10 damage that the Bomb King sticky does when it hits you. Blasters are good on this map, but I don't know if all 5 is going to be what Carnage need to topple D69.
Yeah, we're going to see some credits spent pretty wisely here from District 69, I imagine. Those Blast Shields going to go a long way up against Carnage Gaming's team, and now the D69 has rounded out their draft with the classic Talus Genos combo. Feel like the ease of execution for D69 is certainly on their side. Feels like it's a much easier comp to execute.
Yeah, for sure. D69 have the standard composition with good ults, good backlines on this map. I think theirs says Ice Mine to a T, but Carnage, they have really good ults. If they manage to get a good Immortal, if they get a good King Bomb, they could turn this on the last fight.
Seems like they might need to, as they struggled mightily in game number 1. We'll see if Carnage Gaming can turn it around as we head into game number 2.
Thanks again on the desk, fellas, as we move into this all-important game number 2. And if you want to change the momentum from that blistering game number 1, then I think Ice Mines is a pretty good pick for that, Dolson. I just don't know so much about the draft. Sounds like Kresnik and Aggro leaning towards D69. You agree with those guys in the way they broke it down?
Yeah, I think, saying that D69 has the easier draft to execute is pretty spot on. Carnage Gaming, I love the individual champions they've picked for Ice Mines. I love a
BK on Ice Mines, that's easy, right? You love that.
Right. I love BK on Ice Mines. I love a Dredge on Ice Mines. I think Eevee on Ice Mines has her place. Pip there as well. I think a lot of this hinges on Crimson. We have not seen a lot of solo healer Pip. I think it can work. Difficult to execute. But again, I agree with Kresnik when he looks at the ultimates for Carnage Gaming. That's where this can really get overwhelming for D69. But it's these even strength mid-fights where I think the red side might have a little bit better footing, but Carnage Gaming starting off well.
Certainly they do. With 2 picks, they take down Exentra and Fish Echo early on. But D69 have already built up 66%. The Inara from Crunchy certainly doing the work. I mean, yeah, they lost the fight, but a 72% lead is not bad. The only problem is that this is Ice Mines, and sometimes you can be zoned out from the midpoint. Essentially an entire cap duration if you're not careful, Dolson. Carnage are in position. It's just a question of can District 69 force their way through, and Logi and Exentra say yes. Fish Echo, though, is taken in trade. A double for Skidary might allow them to hold on to this mid-control, but Crunchy is back in and contesting. The question is, though, who can follow him up, and Ares keeping everyone at bay with this double.
Crunchy's still alive on the point, will throw up the wall to sustain himself. He's only going to be able to buy a little bit of time. Not enough clean fight wins there for D69, and maybe one last chance to get in.
But it won't be Exentra. He gets popped the second he comes through by Gerben, but no one is capping. They want the fight right now instead, as they do their best to keep Fish Echo on this barricade bay. And right now, even though they're not capping, because they're delaying their attempts to come back in and find the touch, they're maintaining the control.
This is smart, and Crunchy is going to get up a little bit of healing, maybe able to move in, grab a touch here on this point, just delaying things a little further. I thought it was smart because I thought that somebody was going to come back from Carnage Gaming to finish it off, and they now will. It's going to be Gera with the last-ditch effort maybe to get down there. I figured the thought process there for Carnage was, let's really handily win this fight, and then D69 is fully going to be pushed back in their base by the time that we've won this. That's an Immortal now burnt by Gerben.
Yeah.
I mean, you're likely going to win this point if you're Carnage, but that is, I have to say, a touch sloppy on the execution there towards the end.
Certainly seems that way to me. Carnage, though, still the team able to come out on top, at least in terms of winning that one mid-fight. Right. The question now is, where do they go beyond that one here, Dolson? As looks like waiting a little bit longer to see exactly where they're going to end up. But still, as you said, maybe a little bit closer than they would have liked in that very last fight there, right? I mean, they end up having to still expend a couple of ultimates, too, just to try and make sure they get it.
I guess now that I'm kind of thinking the mindset there was like, we are totally going to blow D69 out of the water, so we're going to win. We're going to send one person back, finish off the mid, and then this payload's going to get rolling and rolling and rolling while D69 is still all back and respawning. But Carnage wasn't able to cleanly win those trades. Crunchy was able to walk back in healthy enough to get a touch onto the point, and you saw Logi move in, burn the Immortal on Fernando. So the thought process was maybe there from Carnage, because Ice Mines is a map where you can really snowball it down if the enemy team is fully respawning right when you win the payload. I wonder now how this defense looks. I mean, we're looking at a couple members of D69 respawning, one member of Carnage back and respawning. So certainly a chance for D69 to mount a decent defense here on the back of what should have been a cleaner point cap for Carnage.
So this will be a pretty big deal here for D69 now, how well they're able to hold on here on this defense. But Scuderi and the boys are keeping the payload moving here for now. Garrett, Kunzi, and Laji all end up sitting down as Scuderi finds a double amongst all the chaos. So they should be able to keep this train right on and rolling. We're a bit worried about the blaster-heavy composition here from them, about maybe the non-traditional draft and Pip solo healing. But so far, in their non-traditional playstyle, it's absolutely working for Carnage.
Yeah, it's worked out so far. I still worried later in the game when the credits start to roll for D69 and the blast shields are able to come online a little bit heavier, but look at the space control that they have. A great Ice Storm, Scooter, massive on this Bomb King up to this point. It's a big 1v1. If you can get Garrett down, maybe keep the payload moving.
Turns back towards the rest of the fight, maybe just gonna let Gara get out of this one a little bit scot-free. In fact, it does end up costing the BK as he'll fall back. So just 69 have found the stall exactly where you would normally expect, right around this final archway. And they've been able to buy themselves a little bit of time. Fisheko even getting a bit aggressive. This is where Carnage are going to have to find a way to break through. But as you said, they've got some good control, some good AoE. That's why Xentra trying to break up some of that combo by getting to the back line. Not enough, though, to quite find the pit.
Xentra's still in a good spot, though. Can melt down some health bars. Laji as well. Gonna return some good damage. It's Scuderi who's been aggressive time and time again. That's really given Carnage Gaming a big foothold here. Unfortunately, not clean enough. I mean, this is why Ice Mine slows down so heavily. It's so difficult to break through this archway. And Crunty on this Inara, I mean, look no further. The health bar is sometimes way too much to melt through. She can do a good bit of damage as well. You talk about a difficult front line to burn down, Inara Barrack might just be at the top.
Well, with the overtime ticking down, that should do it for District 69. They find their defense, and as you said, time might just be the enemy of this Carnage composition, or really, I suppose, is the itemization for District 69 as they get more and more credits to work with. So they're going to need to find these wins a little bit more cleanly, or it might get to the point where they can't win another mid-fight.
Let's hats off to Laji as well for being top damage here in this game. I mean, not unlike what we just saw from D69 on Frog Isle, where you have this overwhelming amount of damage. Pip does a great amount of damage as well. You can start to see some of those blast shields coming online. A couple for Fisheko, one for Crunty, one for Xentra. So I don't expect as handily of or as full-on mid-fight win for Carnage Gaming as we saw the first time around. But the big pivot, though, Finch, is what we're now seeing in the Ultimate department. Immortal, a King Bomb, an Evil Mojo from Crimson. I still think Carnage Gaming have the lead in the Ultimate department if executed properly.
And there's the Evil Mojo. See you later to Crunty. Not going to get rid of an Inara much easier than that, so they turn their attention towards Fisheko, even with the Dome Shield. The aggression from Carnage Gaming does not seem to be slowing down. Good work coming to the backline. They're trying to with Xentra, but that's a triple as they lay waste to Carnage. I know Crunty went down early, but they absolutely turned that one around.
And T69 already have themselves 51% on this point. It would be an equal, as great as that mid-fight was, it would be an equally grand throw, I suppose, if Carnage Gaming were able to make their way back into this one. With the way Laji has been playing here, I don't see a world where they are. Maybe a contest. It looked like one member of Carnage Gaming maybe was able to slip through on the back. But actually, this right here, this is what Carnage was trying to do on point fight number 1. But D69 just executed it cleaner. You know, D69 could have captured that point. Granted, it's, 2, 3, 4 seconds ago. They pause just for a second, burn some ultimates, fully win that mid, and look at the amount of space they're able to make up already. Similar mindsets, you can see the mind for the game is the same, but D69 able to execute the stall just a little bit better.
Right, now Carnage finding some pretty good kills. Took down one. Xentra was the one that followed afterwards, and so Carnage should be able to stall out this offense for D69 pretty well. But now the question, Dolson, becomes how do you like this defense from Carnage? Our first time seeing them on this payload defense, and it looks like they should be able to push out and establish a pretty substantial zone at this point as well, too.
Yeah, it's a very difficult team to fight into. It's one thing kind of when you're on evil footing, the tug of war of a mid-fight, but you try to fight it into a Bomb King, fight into an Eevee. It's always going to be difficult just because of the space control and the sudden burst damage that they provide. I think Laji plays a massive role in kind of softening up this defense. One big shot onto a Bomb King, and will knock him down right there, is going to make all the difference in the world. Sometimes it's just one pick that sends a defense crumbling, and it's the Knessa doing so right now.
Yeah, we thought after that last mid-fight that maybe District 69 would get a bit more out of this push, but Carnage ate up half their time already. They'll finally should be able to get that payload down to this final archway, but as is often the case with Ice Mines, you don't have nearly as much time in your back pocket as you normally would like to try and make it through, and there's a lot of ultimates on deck here for Carnage as well, so if they feel like the defense starts to slip away from them a bit, they've got the ultimates that can secure it, so things looking pretty tough here for D69 to find the conversion, but D69 proved us all wrong yesterday when it looked like they were going to get absolutely wiped by Sangwon. They pulled it back and made it close, so maybe they got some options here.
This is tough. This is a war on two fronts. A Spexy all the way in the back behind District 69, and the fight is raging on the point right now, way up in front. The EV obviously mobile enough to rejoin, and actually is going to get a kill on Talaji, so maybe better. And that's really kind of, you know, peak Eevee there. You get in behind the enemy team, especially Elaji, a perfect target there. Now getting a kill on Tagara, so what I thought was a caught-out Eevee actually was great position.
Well, Fish Echo is still up and healthy, trying to battle up against Ares on this dredge. Wow, he went from up and healthy to gone pretty quick, as Spexy was there with Ares to help out, and that is enough for Carnage to find the defense. So both teams, with pretty strong mid-fights, go immediately into a stalled-out offensive push. But that is Ice Mines very often, right? It's so hard to get those conversions. So it really is going to come down, I think, to these next two mid-fights.
Very curious now that I'm seeing, you know, Fasheko being the one on the Barrack, Cruncy being the one on the Inara, Excentra over on the Talus. I mean, so some, you know, swapping maybe going on there. Fasheko, I figured, might be the one over on the Talus, but Excentra certainly doing a good job up to this point.
Yeah.
Lots of nimbles for Carnage Gaming right now. A nimble 2 on 4 members, and Scuderi has nimble 3. So it's that overwhelming ability to kind of outmaneuver that Carnage Gaming is bringing to the table. And they did a good job of holding on to their ultimates going into this mid-fight as well. Didn't work out for them last time. King Bomb, Evo Mojo didn't find maybe exactly what they were looking for.
So this next mid-fight will be key, and Gara will not be a part of it, at least for now. A Spexy with a double to start things off is not bad, but Laji's still in his position in the back. That's why it's so critical that Ares makes it back there, gets in the damage double for him as Laji and Cruncy go down. So another dominant mid-fight. These are big, swingy point fights that we're seeing so far here, Dulcin. And if it goes the way the rest of them have, then they've already got this locked up.
Yeah, it might just be it for Carnage Gaming. It's the one big old swing that Carnage Gaming has at D69. Just can't fight against. I don't see a world where Cruncy's able to make it back in time. Can you get these final few kills and stagger them out is the next question. Getting rid of the Inara is certainly a good start. But with Excentra finding one, maybe things start to hold themselves a little bit more even. But you look at the Dome Shield, wasn't ever able to get used there through time and space. Didn't hit its target, and D69 are, you'd think it would be easy itemization choices for them, given the full-on blast shield priority that Carnage Gaming is bringing to the table, but also got to consider resilience because of an Evil Mojo, a King Bomb, potentially some big stuns, an Ice Storm as well. Then you also are going to want, you know, a little bit of Cauterize, and there's some Wrecker to look at. I mean, there are a lot of items that D69 wants, and you're foregoing another important item in order to get there. So what maybe seemed one-sided is actually putting D69 in an interesting point. But the ultimates do win the day there on the mid. The defense now starting to crumble a little bit for D69, though some ultimates starting to come back.
It is. They went pretty far forward on this aggressive zone. They're paying it forward a little bit now, though, as Excentra and Laji have started falling back a bit. Taking the battle with the Spexy quite bravely, but this payload should now start rumbling yet again here for Carnage. They're back and getting it moving on offense, but this is just the first of a couple of difficult areas to try and deal with if you are on that offense. Sounds as though Excentra wants to try and get a bit involved. Big ultimate as well coming out from the pit player, and that sets up for Ares and a Spexy to take care of Fish Exo and Excentra quite well. Logic gets at least one response, though, so a 2-for-1 keeps D69 in this defense a bit more than you might have thought. But Carnage have now made it to about the halfway point, still with a decent amount of time to work with, but so favored are the defense here.
Yeah, D69 are going to be able to get themselves nice and set up back on the respawn. 40 or so seconds remaining, so not all that much time, especially with how long Ice Mines is. D69 are able to win, maybe 1.5 team fights cleanly here. It'll probably be a tied-up game headed on to a .7. Look at these ultimates, though. Neither team are going to want to burn them, but Carnage Gaming might be willing to win the map.
They've been pushed out. It's just the Eevee and the Pip that are still standing for now. They got to completely fall back. So 15 seconds to completely push past this zone from D69 and start to get that payload moving, at least to find a touch. Try and win in overtime. Great wall, though, from Cruncy. Locks in Crimson, and Exentra will light him up 12 ways to Sunday, and that should be it. We'll be moving then into a 3-3 for this final mid-fight here, Dawson. How could it have ended truly any other way on Ice Mines? But they've been trading them back, right? It was Carnage first, then D69,
right,
then Carnage. So D69 are maybe in a position to win the most important one.
My God, Laji is having himself a game and a half, 21-7 on this Knessa, and he has, 15,000 more damage than the next highest in the game. Still massive damage numbers. Actually, Gervin is putting up big damage numbers over Excentra on this Talus. Talus doing a good job of kind of melting through some of the low health bars. Granted, more damage to be done, I suppose. The health pool for D69 certainly higher. Only one bit of resilience, and it's on Cruncy, and that's where I look here. A King Bomb can lock down so many members of D69, and Ice Storm as well. I mean, it's what I was mentioning before, but there is no evil mojo. The morale boost 3s, or no morale boost on Pip, so we'll have to see how this mid-fight plays out.
Exentra wanted to get to the back to try and take care of Ares right away. Wasn't quite a kill, but it does buy some damage. Cruncy has been slowed down, so in comes the Dome Shield to buy him some time, and it results in a trade. Cruncy for Skidary, but that might favor D69 because they still have Fish Echo to pick up the slack. Logi puts down Gervin, and D69 do indeed now have this mid-control. Exentra looking for Ares yet again, but had to fall back. A complete zone as Ares will end up falling to Logi. This Knessa has been relentless so far here on Ice Mines with 60% in the back pocket. Someone on Carnage has to find a touch, or Ice Mines could come crumbling down here and now.
D69's to lose here at this point. They've got a Headhunter, an evil mojo for Carnage Gaming. All that stands between D69 and a win.
Spexy tried to blink his way past, get Ares down already. Eccentric is the kill in the Crimson. Ares tries to find a trade, but the checkerboarding will favor D69. They'll take Ice Mines. What a back and forth, really brutal battle it was, but D69 come out on top.
You got to be at least happy if you're a Carnage. Well, I guess you're happy, but also sad. I mean, you're down 0-2 now, one game away from dropping out of the summer finals here in the PPC. Yeah. But a great showing on Ice Mines. And, what the desk was saying and what we kind of highlighted tended to be kind of spot on. It was ultimates or bust there for Carnage Gaming. We saw a mid-fight where they all hit and D69 stood no chance at all. And then there towards the end, you didn't have the evil mojo quite ready. That was kind of the morale boost point I was looking at. Some of those ultimates didn't quite connect. And that's when the tried and true composition that D69 has was able to flourish.
Well, a much more competitive map, to say the least, here on Ice Mines. So that should make it a lot easier for our Des to break it down this time, you'd hope.
Thanks, Finch and Dolson. Yeah, I actually had time to finish my breakfast bar, do some thinking. That was a bit of a more competitive game for sure. And ultimately, D69 do go up 2-0, but Kresnik, it wasn't as easy as it looked like it might be. I mean, the draft, we were kind of all scratching our heads at the 5 blasters. It almost worked there for Carnage Gaming.
Yeah, once they had their ultimates to connect, it ended up working out pretty well. And I think having all those blasters once they locked in Knessa on the other side helped them even more. Having indirect damage, not having to peak Logi, especially when, look at his stats by the end of the game. We saw that right before the end. He was 21-7. When they had to peak him, he was hitting every shot. But having that ability to spam around corners, force them back, and bully out these tanks helped a lot. But in that final fight, like they said, when the ultimates weren't online, they just weren't able to convert.
And Exentra had a phenomenal game on this Talus. I think this is a great selection for the replays because he was all over the place in a great way. I mean, you using that mobility, was constantly diving into that back line. And even though the shallow HP pool, only 1900 HP, was still able to get around enough of those giant explosions to find his way into the back line and usually find a multi-kill.
That's where you get that value from Guts in the build, that up to, I think, 30% damage reduction when you're low HP. You just have to know exactly how much effective health you have at that point. And Exentra has clearly played enough Talus to know that. enough to push Fish onto a tank, so he can play Talus instead when you know Exentra as a tank player normally. But yeah, you're right. He ended up playing really well, I think, off of Logi's damage. Logi couldn't finish a kill. Exentra was right there to true power in and find it for him.
And that results in a 2-0 victory for District 69, which means they are just one win away from moving on and knocking out Carnage Gaming. But overall for CG, as good as you can feel being down 2-0, at least that big turnaround. Game 1, they got stomped. Game 2, all the way to the final point. I think that they've got to at least find some comfort in that.
Yeah, agreed. And this is a map that maybe you can say, oh, it's Ice Mines that went down to the final point, but they were in control for a decent amount of the game, and I think they played well into District 69, this high-skilled team. They can carry this forward if they play something maybe more standard, maybe something that they're more comfortable with on a different map. Stonekeep would be a great place for that. They could take it over D69 with how they just played. I think the way that we saw them playing there, they might want to do a more backline-centric composition, play outside, and try to just find a way to stop D69 from engaging onto them. I think that's going to be their end game versus this style of team.
And you know that D69 has the experience to understand that this set is not over, because they found themselves in the other side of this exact situation yesterday and nearly came back in order to beat Sanguine. So I'd expect a strong finish here potentially for District 69. But Carnage certainly not going to go down without a fight. And in that first pick position, they're actually going to take away Logi's Kinessa right away. He's played that both games so far in this set.
Yeah, I'd ban it too. I mean, after what he just did on Ice Mines, a map that people don't normally pair with the snipers, I'd get rid of it too. You don't want him to play it on a map that I think plays it pretty well. You can use it to the transporter to go over the hedge on the backside, get a free flank that no one else can really stop you from doing. And when a sniper appears in your backline, suddenly the whole map changes, and if you thought you were going to retreat, they could just get rid of it right away. So smart by them to get rid of it, and I think also smart by D69 to remove Io after how their last 5-game set yesterday went.
Yeah, I think that's pretty wise. Vivian there, the other ban by Carnage, a pick that we've seen look very strong every time she's locked in. But that does leave Victor open, at least for now, and we see Victor picked and banned quite often, it seems, on this map, as Bomb King taking away another staple of just about any Paladins composition, not necessarily only on Stone Keep, but Inara is still open, and Victor. Those are the two picks that I'm looking for here.
For sure, and I think either one will get value here. Inara is one of the few characters that can withstand really getting pressured on the point on this map, and Victor has that high rotation, high damage potential, but Strix instead, by Carnage, they want to monopolize the snipers after banning Kinessa, having the ability to potentially burn through the Inara if she doesn't have the wall up at the right time. But I do think Strix can struggle here a little bit, especially if D69 ends up picking an Ashe or any aggressive tank that can really go into the backline. Kinessa can get away. Strix can't really do that, and with that pick now, D69 can take away this prioritized Victor as well.
Yeah, I like the idea, but the high pick rate and very, very low win rate for Strix has to be at least somewhat scary, right? Almost 50% pick rate with a sub 15% win rate is not ideal for the first pick, but they're going to go for it here, Carnage. And you know what? Again, when you're down 2-0, when you've been struggling, they haven't won a map yet in this tournament. You got to try and do something a little bit different, and maybe the Strix can be that.
It's possible. Strix can be consistent depending on... It's all about the player, and if he can hit the quickscopes, and I know the DPSs on Carnage have that capability, and going to be even more with the Genos boost. Andro also, high-skill flanker there, can duel into the EV, especially since Carnage lost that last map. It's their map pick, which means it's their server pick, which means it's going to be on BR, so whoever plays the EV for D69 is going to be playing it on a Europe to Brazil ping, going to be very difficult, and having an Andro to shut that down potentially could help quite a bit. You have that flank controlled, and your Strix suddenly gets a lot more potent.
Yeah, I like the idea for sure. That Andrea pick is certainly one that I like. There's now Barrack locked in for District 69. No Inara, decides to go with the Barrack instead. And there's the Corvus with Genos off the board. Guerra knows he's going to get one of his priority supports, and it's really been Genos and Corvus for him so far this weekend.
And Corvus, I think, pairs well with this composition, being able to pocket the Barrack potentially, and throwing the mark onto the Victor, stacking the grand design lifesteal on top of the lifesteal he already gets from Predator. That all goes to Corvus, makes him a very hard target to pin down. So if this Andro tries to find an opening on Tagara, his health bar is just going to be unchanging no matter how much damage the Hellfire Gatling or the Revolver do.
Now Buck, last pick. We've seen Buck, I believe on Stonekeep in particular, quite a bit, but the only 33% win rate. How have you felt about Buck's effectiveness so far this weekend?
I'm surprised he hasn't won as much as he has. I really do feel like he's very strong, but you need to pair him with an aggressive comp, so having that ROM backing him up can help quite a bit as long as they go in for the same target. It's the same as two tanks basically collapsing in a single location. If they land on that Victor, if they land on that Cassie, as long as that big game isn't up and that ROM doesn't get burnt to pieces because of it, they can get a pick instantly and probably not trade. ROM has that burst sustain, Buck has that burst sustain. Just run away, don't let that 250 ping EV chase you, and you should be able to regroup with your team.
Now we have to see if District 69 can end up closing out the set and sending their opposition home. Carnage Gaming on the brink. We'll see if they can stay alive here in game number 3.
I've struggled a bit up until now. Frog Isle, they got ran over aggro, and then on Ice Mind, it was much closer, but they still couldn't find the win. So what about here on Stone Keep? Can they find a way to get it done? The answer is they have to, or else they'll just be going home.
And they've got a composition that can work and has worked, and it is purely on individual execution, I suppose. The Strix, you're hitting shots and people are dying on the other end of it, whether it's you finishing them off or one of your teammates finishing off the kill, and they've got a great composition for it. You look at a Buck wanting to jump into the back line, finish off a kill that a Strix is set up. There's plenty of opportunity there for Carnage Gaming, but D69 have it just the same as well. If Cruncy can set up some good shots, Accentra's going to be able to melt down these high priority targets. Finch, I really think this one just comes down to execution.
And I will say, Aries not here for this game. Looks like he had to be subbed out, but hadn't slowed down Carnage to start with here, Dolson. Able to go up to a pretty good start despite the 27% that was built up by D69. So now Spexy can get into position with the Strix, as you mentioned. If he can find these shots, then maybe that'll be enough. Tags the Eevee on the way through to make life a little bit harder, but Accentra finally catches up and shuts him down.
I mean, just look at that. I mean, he tags, what, 3 shots in the span of a couple of seconds there, and suddenly health bar's just missing from D69. But overextended. This is going to open up the door for D69 to fight back into it. Not all is lost. 96% for Carnage. First wave of ultimates still maybe hinging here. You got to stay alive if you're the last couple members of Carnage Gaming here. They were able to do so. So still a chance to fight back in. This one might go down to the 99-99.
Logi had to roll back out of there. Cruncy in the battle up against Gerben not liking his chances, so instead chooses to reposition. It's overtime ticking now for Carnage. They've re-managed to take control. Scuderi is still standing on the point on this ROM as Spexy is trying to find the shots from up top. He finally puts Garrett down, but it might have been too late. Logi has already gotten the double. Now it's overtime for District 69. That forces Spexy to come down and contest, but Cruncy puts him down. Logi gets a kill as well, and D69 win this first mid-fight.
And D69, remember, they are pushed back into their base and respawning by Carnage Gaming almost immediately into this one. And then maybe just a bit too far forward. I don't hate the idea of kind of fighting on the other side of the church, trying to slow down the dismounts, but you can't die when you're that far out. Or if you're going to die, it needs to be a full-on clean sweep so you can respawn and get back in. It was a slow stagger that allowed D69 to kind of choke out way too much time there from Carnage Gaming. Now we're seeing the opposite, though, where D69 are caught out just a little bit, and it's Carnage Gaming who have started off a great defense for themselves.
But this is part of what makes ROM so strong. He can eat up all that damage and then reposition in a way that's pretty hard to stop unless you got some pretty reliable hard CC, but Accentra, he was the one that made that retake look so devastating for D69 earlier, and now here he is having another strong retake as he puts down 2 and is even able to put some decent damage into Gerben, or Scuderi rather, on that ROM and push him all the way back. They'll catch up with him. He's got the barrage in the back pocket as well, so if they want to try and push up beyond this arch, that's a pretty good tool for making it happen.
And that is brutal. I mean, if you're fighting against a Victor, you can win, but you have no room for error. If you're a Spexy, you need to snipe, go invis, and snipe again. And Accentra is not missing many shots, and unfortunately, there's just too much damage being returned. Shades of Frog Isle here, Finch, and there's just an overwhelming amount of accurate damage being poured in to Carnage Gaming, and maybe a 2-0 for D69.
Yeah, I wonder, I can't tell really here. D69 do find that conversion. Is it a problem with the front line, with this ROM, where he's not buying enough time? Or is the problem with maybe a Spexy not getting this damage off clearly enough? What about Cool? He's the one that's in for Ares, I believe, piloting the Buck right now. He's 1-6. It has not been a particularly effective game for him either.
No, and I think it's a lot of a Spexy getting shut down almost immediately. You look at the retake there on the offensive push by D69. Accentra at 8-2-6. 10k more damage just a few minutes into this game than a Spexy. And, you know, they kind of one and the same. You expect Accentra and a Spexy to be kind of jockeying for that top damage position through and through. But Accentra's just been winning those 1v1s more consistently. And that's sort of what I was mentally hovering around going into this one. Kind of comes down to execution. You look at the ability to dislodge this Strix, and D69 have it and have been finding it on a consistent basis.
Well, Logi having the keep battle with both frontliners in air quotes. He comes out the better, at least in terms of the Buck, but they lose Crunchy and Accentra, and they've really been relying on Accentra's damage. They got 51% though to start things off, did D69. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that they might be getting pushed out here, but Logi staggered a bit behind everyone else. Might make this retake a little harder than they'd bargained for.
That's a mid-fight and a half from Gervin here on this Androxus. I'm talking about how it's Accentra who's been getting rid of the Strix, and it's Gervin this time around that's doing this, diving into the back, grabs a couple of kills, and buys enough space for Carnage Gaming to grab a point.
Yeah, I know he died there, but that absolutely worked, right? Allowed for a Spexy to have time to get scoped at downrange as well, find that last kill for him to secure that actual mid-cap, and now they can start working on offense for the first time. Cool, able to shut down Crunchy on this Eevee with a nice shot, and maybe they could turn this Stone Keep into something after all here, Dolson. If they get a conversion here, it's suddenly 2-2, things are all evened up, but the opposite scenario where this gets stalled out and it's a 3-1 might be a backbreaker. D69 would only need one mid-fight.
Yeah, this is massive. This is a big swing here in this game and kind of the onset of this set. Scuderi's done a good job, I think, on this ROM, but we're starting to see a meta where people are just, I don't want to say ignoring him.
I think that's what they're doing.
But if you're able to deal with the backliners and then turn around and deal with ROM later, you're going to do that every time. This is difficult here for D69. You're starting to get staggered out, but a kill onto a Spexy is certainly going to help.
As well as Crimson falling too. That's the healing taken out of the equation for now, so the Rama, Andro, and Buck might just have to wait. Though they know they've got Logi pinned down and low, get some good healing. The Scuderi cannot quite claim that life just now, but they still have a minute to work with on this final choke point on Stone Keep. That's very doable, I would say, at this point, Dolson. So Carnage, if they can stay focused here, this is a pretty big point, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Ultimate's getting used by D69. This is where you need to be winning this defense, but they haven't been able to do so. Big Ultimate from Scuderi is going to keep things rolling for Carnage.
Yeah, the Cataclysm allows them to get rid of two members that were entrenched in. I don't think that Gera is still there. Clearly, maybe an issue there for District 69 on that one, as he ends up getting laid down. Crunchy falls as well. Not much that Fisheko can do on his own, so that is the conversion coming through from Carnage. Not sure what happened there with Gera and the rest of the boys, but suddenly it's that 2-2 we mentioned.
I mean, I guess there's a world where even if, you know, regardless of what's happening there, I don't think Gera's making the round-saving play nonetheless. So, yeah, everything else aside, I think that one was rolling in. And especially now you look at the kind of chemistry of this mid-fight where Logi, Crunchy both used their ultimates and didn't find really any value for either of them. Carnage Gaming only uses the ROM ultimate. The other two that are down very close to being back up. So more effective trading on that damage. The dives were more successful. I think Gervin continuing to find massive value out of this Androxus, and Scuderi as well on the ROM.
Yep.
You know, it's one thing to ignore him, but you need to be able to kill somebody else in the meantime if you're D69 before you turn back to the ROM.
a good Cataclysm from him last time. Let's see what value can be found here as D69 starting to crumble. Again, they've already lost 2. Exentra does get the return, but Fish Echo is essentially just a shooting gallery at this point. He drops to the pressure from the Andro. Even though 42% was built up by D69, this is looking good for Carnage yet again. Maybe they can find a way to get back in here and try and hold on.
He's so far back. This is what Gervin has been able to do. This little look at Excentra. You can't get into a position to fight into these fights because the onset of this Androxus. Losing Andro, though, that's going to open up the door for D69 and those ultimates that are not coming back.
They have managed to get rid of the ROM here one more time. Gruntsy up to the sky. Wants to try and take a battle over this high ground in Cape. Elagi's gotten Skidary elsewhere, so they don't have to worry about the ROM for now, as Gruntsy finally will fall. Gervin and Cool getting a couple other pretty important kills, but D69 still holding on. Now with the Dome Shield on the point as well, this could be their capture. Spexy the only one that's still here, but what can he do? Now everyone knows where he is. Gets the kill into Exentra. That is pretty big. The ROM is here and finds the touch. The double for Spexy. He takes care of Kara as well, maybe trying to single-handedly bring this fight back as he puts down Fish Echo as Spexy showing up for him on the Strix. He finds the retake.
And I don't think D69 have a chance in hell in getting back to this one. That is the execute threshold we talk about when we bring up a Strix. All is lost there for Carnage Gaming. No chance they win that mid-fight. Numbers are against them. But the quick-scope shots from a Spexy just connected. It's that simple to break down the end of that mid-fight there. Spexy plays out of his mind. Flashbang maybe didn't quite hit the mark that he was looking for, but he did so much damage and so many affected kills there around the end that despite it being, maybe a one-man disadvantage, Carnage Gaming were able to clean it up from there because nobody was alive or in the position to dive on the Strix. Now a chance to get themselves their first win.
Struggles here, though, trying to dislodge Logi absolutely does not work. Instead, ends up being a double in the other direction. Certainly not all doom and gloom, though, as Distro69 find their pretty strong zone here at this point. Carnage should have plenty of time to start looking to reset, but with 1:30 still left on the clock, this time being eaten away, as Spexy perhaps can be the one that can help them find this retake and start to get back into position to push further on this offense. But for now, still stalled out as District69 playing this zone very well.
It should be a kill onto a Spexy, and instead Spexy turns it around with 49 HP. D69, though, they've kind of said, all right, chips on the table, we're going to try to push Carnage Gaming back as much as we can. We're fine in respawning. We've got a great high ground advantage if we have to fight back in our base. But there's still a minute left. If Gara goes down here, which he's not, in the meantime, Carnage Gaming are the ones who are going to die instead. It would have been a lot more dire. You're in that position now, though, Finch. You start to look at some of these ultimates and where their charge is. You're kind of waiting for Carnage Gaming to make that move, or rather the other way around. Carnage Gaming, they might be fine carrying those ultimates into the next mid. D69 have to spend them to keep this payload from going through.
If Carnage can put them under that much pressure.
Correct.
But right now, it's looking like that might not be the case. A kill from Logi and Gara is going to slow down this push yet again. Cool ends up dropping. Exentra gets the better of Gervin this time in their little battle. It's a double that he's able to find. Spexy's still standing, but I don't know if he's got enough for another set of late-game heroics. He does find the turnaround flick, though, onto this Eevee to shut Crunchy down, but he's buying time. Crunchy doing the job that he needs to keep everyone pinned over in Keep instead of on the actual payload, but still, Carnage have the touch. They're in overtime, and this is about draining resources, and Jalaji finds another double.
Yeah, Logi on the Cassie, pivotal here on the defensive side. Spexy's in a great position. If he can find a couple more shots, we'll give Carnage Gaming a chance.
That puts down Crunchy, who, I don't know, maybe not had the absolute best game on this Eevee, but he's done the job here time and time again. And they still got some ultimates if they want to try and use them, do Carnage, to maybe put this set to bed. Not the set, but at least Stone Keep. That's what they're looking for, but a Spexy does get pushed back out. The respawn's now starting to come through for D69, but they lose Crunchy yet again. There's the Dome Shield coming out from the barrack as D69 try to hold on. But that's exactly what Carnage wanted. They force out a couple more ultimates on the tail end as they move into the last point fight.
And that's exactly what you're saying there. It's the, if Carnage put them under enough pressure, that's when D69 have to be the first ones to react. Carnage are like, all right, well, we'll throw out a flashbang, whatever, see if we maybe get some picks there. D69, their back's against the wall. We have to use the Corvus ultimate, the Dome Shield, just to control that space, and that's ultimately what it was.
Yeah.
It forces Carnage Gaming out of that contest circle there, but now 2 big ultimates are not there for this mid-fight. You want a Dome Shield to give yourself either a winning push or one last stand at staying in there, as well as the Corvus ultimate, great at controlling some space. This one really hinges now for D69 on Cruncy or Excentra, maybe even Logi, popping some shots into a Spexy, who's putting on a masterclass on Strix here on Stone Keep.
He absolutely is. Barrage, probably their best tool, as Gervin drops the accursed arm to try and get Fish Echo out. It absolutely works. They take care of the barrack very, very early on. And Cool inside the keep is absolutely going wild. They're able to put down a couple more as Gervin gets the double on the Logi and Gira. This is what Carnage needed to see to try and hold on. But Cruncy buying time finally gets shut down by the shotgun as Carnage able to put a little bit of percent now in their name and get set up. But Fish Echo has made his way all the way around to start contesting, pushes Crimson out, and maybe D69 are right back in it.
There's a brilliant grenade there from Excentra actually to knock down one more of Carnage Gaming, give themselves a little bit more of a fighting chance. All the cards are on the table for Carnage. Now you look at the flip side. One Barrage could potentially be a big difference maker here. If that one finds its way onto the Strix, onto the Genos, could be D69's to lose.
Excentra wins the battle there with Cool. That's huge that he's still up and still has the barrage ready to go, so he pulls it out. This is to zone more than anything. If they poke their heads out, the barrage will suddenly shut them down. Spexy falls early. That's huge that Excentra was able to take care of him. Finds the kill on the Gervin as well. This is it for Carnage Game. Their tournament lives are on the line right now, but Excentra's unrelenting in the scope. He puts down Cool as well. Able to keep Crimson out with the overtime ticking down. That should do it. Excentra was a little bit too much, and D69 able to find the win.
That's the perfect man to follow there towards the end. You know, it's Carnage Gaming. They do a great job of retaking that point with their ultimates. They take the keep side. High ground is forfeit from D69, but it's that last breath. And this really was a struggle between, you know, every once in a while Gervin and Logi would have these big plays to kind of turn these fights around, but the battle between the Strix and the Victor this game was just so much fun to follow, and it ultimately came down to who could dive on the enemy more effectively. Towards the end there, a Barrage connects just on the coattails of the Strix to get a Spexy out of the fight, and the rest is kind of history there. Close in a couple of these games, but D69 ultimately a little bit more consistent.
I don't think that the 3-0 is going to really tell this story. I know Frog Isle was a stomp, but Stone Keep was very close. Remember, they didn't even have Ares in that last match. It was still that close. Right. Very impressive, I think, from Carnage, all things considered. But unfortunately, it doesn't really count in the win column. That is a dub for D69, and I'll be getting this back over to the desk to break it down.
Turns out close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and barrage placements, because it was close enough to a Spexy to get the win there for D69. Kresnik, another very, very close 4-3 map. And ultimately, it felt like it was a Spexy versus a Excentra, because those two both had phenomenal games.
Yeah, that matchup between the Victor and the Strix, it is kind of a skill matchup because of that barrage placement, because of the ability to siphon that lifesteal from that Predator card. So seeing Excentra performing when he's really a DPS main, swapping to it against Aspexy, who's been a star, I think, this whole split, it's really impressive from him, picking up this controller and having this just prominence on these hit scans so far across this tournament.
He's looked so good, man, and Victor as a champion has just looked pretty unstoppable, if you ask me. I mean, it's just so much damage, 126,000 for Excentra in this game, and the backline dive was effective at times, but it really felt like the only way that Excentra was being taken out was because of a Spexy.
Yeah, and that's just the power of Strix at that point. If you're walking and hitting every headshot, snipers, when you hit every single shot, are almost unbeatable, and Spexy kind of put it in that unbeatable place with him, and that one mid we got to watch him just on top of the stairs, wiping the entire team off the face of the earth. And honestly, one of the reasons why D69 were even able to retake in the end was Cruncy making a suicide dive to take down a Spexy in the end and actually giving his team a chance to actually retake some ground.
Yeah, 106,000 for that Strix, and a great performance by Carnage Gaming. They deserve a lot of credit, I think, Kresnik, because they got absolutely trounced yesterday, and then to come in game one on Frog Isle, get just smacked. I feel like a lot of teams would lose confidence, lose that competitive fire, but clearly this Carnage Gaming team did not. They put up a phenomenal fight in games 2 and 3.
I mean, no matter, at the end of the day, these players just want to win, right? They come out here, they're willing to, even if they're playing some different drafts, whether it be Quint Blaster on Ice Mines or a more standard comp like we got to see on Stone Keep there, they want to win, and Carnage got to be hurting after going down 6-0 across 2 maps in the last 2 days.
Certainly not ideal for them, but still a top team in their region for sure, and hopefully we'll see some better things from them as the year progresses. But that will do it for Carnage Gaming's Summer Finals. District 69, on the other hand, will move on to lower round 2 and await the winner of Parallax versus Celestial Esports, which is going to be our next match up. And big news for Parallax fans, FRZ God is back today, so we assume that Parallax will benefit from that pretty heavily.
For sure, especially since I think Parallax looked great against the controller hybrid team in Brazil, Fatal Ambition. Most of their matchups against them have been really strong, so now that they're going to be going up against the EU hybrid team, that could carry over, depending. And I know I've seen FRZ play on these blasters on a high ping disadvantage in some scrims in the past. He can do it. They can pull out their normal drafts on any server they end up on.
That's going to be a huge advantage too, especially in the long range sort of distance here between Parallax and Celestial, Brazil versus EU. So make sure you stick around. We'll be right back bringing you the second matchup of the day right after this.